I struggle so much with.
Sean.
Yeah.
She was asking who was on speaker.
Sorry. All right, it's 7:30. We'll call the meeting to order. We have 5 present and 1 on the phone. Sean Katz's on the phone. So a quorum is present. Items from the consent agenda. Do we need to remove any? All right, hearing none. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move we approve consent agenda as presented.
Second. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Tonight we'll say aye, since we can't see if Sean raises his hand. So, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Comments from the public. Superintendent's report.
Okay, just a few items. First of all, after our meeting the other day, our board workshop on boardsmanship, talked a lot about goals, so if the board feels at any time, we'd like to try to set up and arrange to look at goals again. I sent those out Friday, the old goals, and some of those would work today, and some probably are out of date. So maybe we'll get through some things this winter. A lot of our meetings will be kind of full probably through the winter, but towards spring or whatever, if you feel we need to set a separate date completely or whatever to set some goals and go through those. So anytime you want to do that, just let me know. It's up to you guys. I sent in the negotiated agreement on the reduction in force to KSB. Have them take a look at it as we get ready to make some decisions for next year. I just heard back from them at the end of the day today, so I'll read through that a little bit, and then next month we'll be discussing some of the things that the attorney recommended to me. So we'll start on that in December. Quarantines, COVID issues. It's kind of just been an ongoing for us that we have some students go into quarantine because their parents are getting tested, and some are getting tested outside of a normal testing regime. Then we put those in quarantine until we find out whether it's a negative or a positive. Some are in quarantine because their parents may have tested positive. The prison in particular now is doing regular testing, so we have several parents out there. We do not put the kids in quarantine with a regular testing regime that someone's doing, like if it was at Amby Home or at the prison. Since they're doing it regularly every week or 8 to 10 days, then we don't put the kids in just because of that. If it's one outside of that and they're in the home, then we may put them in until we find out what the results of the test. So it's a little different for those. So we got quite a few kids back between the end of last week and the beginning of this week, and we lost a few. So we have a couple of staff out. Short term, I think we're going to get one of those back though tomorrow. And otherwise, we continue on. Like I said, not too many. After we took the days off at the high school, junior high because of staffing, we've really, in this last week, got a lot of kids back in the building. So that's a good thing, because I'm not going to promise anything beyond day to day, because there's a lot of schools around in the state and even in our area that are shutting down, going remote because of either lack of staff or number of students that have tested. Playoff teams in football, lots of things that have kind of wrecked some of their seasons after they're in the playoffs. So it's one of the worst it's been is right now. Hospitals are getting full. I was on a phone or on a Zoom with Department of Ed, and they had a doctor in from KU Med, and that doctor was saying they're full, like in the Wichita area. This is over a week ago, and saying they're full, and Western Kansas, the hospitals are getting full. And even if you have something that's not COVID related, if you have like an accident or something, you may end up in Denver because there's no hospital in Kansas for you to be in. So if you have to be in the ICU, then you're not going to be, they're going to ship you somewhere else. So it's pretty serious. We encourage our kids to continue and staff to wear masks even outside of school setting, because we feel pretty good about what we're doing in the school setting, but we relax when we get outside of the setting of school, and that could get us into trouble. I'm obviously nervous about the holidays. I'll be as guilty as anyone else probably as far as seeing your family in the holidays, and we'll have Thanksgiving, turn right around and go into Christmas. So we'll do the best we can do, and hopefully everyone's careful. Veterans Day, Ms. Strom, I'll let you step on this anytime you want to.
I'm listening.
Decided to cancel Veterans Day activities at school. We discussed this pretty thoroughly last week in an administrative meeting, but at that time we only had a few really planning on coming, and we felt that it would be safe. But I think there was some additions wanting to come, and it got to where we were afraid it would not be a safe situation. Ms. Strom decided that we'd do something remotely, and I'll let you explain that in just a second. But we will still be releasing at the same time. There was no parade, and that's been canceled for a while. But it's on our calendar and everything, and once it's on the calendar like that, it's easier to just go ahead with what you had scheduled than trying to say, oh no, we're going to go to school now. So we'll still be out on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. But the plan ahead of that is going to be a little bit different. So I'll let Ms. Strunk kind of talk about what they're planning to do there.
Basically, at the beginning of Friday morning, we had 8 veterans who said they were going to come to the program, and I felt fairly safe that I could get some social distancing in with 8 veterans. By the time Friday was over, we were up to 17 veterans coming, and I was beginning to panic. And then over the weekend, when I heard about the hospital situation, and I was like, well, I don't want to be the one that causes another outbreak. So I talked to Keith out there today, and he has a couple of different options of Zooming and putting up the slideshow so that we can see their names and we can see the area of the military that the veterans served in. So we're going to Zoom. We're still going to have the assembly, only it's just going to be high school, and the high school will have all of the bleachers on the south side so they can spread out. And the only thing we won't do is bringing in the veterans and announcing their names. We will still announce their names, we just won't do it as they come in. We are having the one veteran who is the speaker come, and he's still going to do his speech so that can be streamed live as well. I am going to get on my Facebook page, and we're going to put it out on Remind how our community and the veterans can log on to watch the program Zoom live on Wednesday. Keith is just working with which way to Zoom it that will have the best audio quality, because we're going to have the band play, we're going to have the choir sing, and so he's trying to play with what will give us the best audio quality. So as soon as I know that, I will get that link out on my Facebook page. Mr. Wilson's going to share it also through mine. So basically, it will be the same program, minus veterans, live, but they'll be able to Zoom in. And then our students are going to spend the rest of the day doing Veterans Day related projects, writing letters, learning about what the holiday's about, the difference between Memorial Day, those types of things. So that's our plan right now.
Okay, thank you. The last thing I have is a reminder that Thanksgiving break starts on the 25th of November, and we'll be back to school then on the 30th, next Monday. Any questions? Anything?
All right, nothing else. We will go with our curriculum update.
We have today, Wellness is presenting today. They're the group for this month. And I think Mrs. Bolt.
We asked Pam Shelton to talk about staff wellness since that was our focus this year at our district wellness meeting. So she's going to talk and share some things that we're trying to do with the school and a little bit information, facts about it. So.
Yeah, so as Joan said, I'm Pam Shelton. I'm part of the Wellness Committee. Our last meeting was October 7th, and we just meet a few times a year. But I'm also part of the trauma team, and at our last wellness meeting, I talked about the trauma team and what we're working on. The Wellness Committee's focus this year is on staff wellness, and this overlaps nicely with what we're doing with our trauma team, which is directed at self-care. So I'll give you sort of that same report that we just went over in our Wellness Committee. School-wide, our trauma team members are Sunny McEwen and Stacy Montgomery, they're in the high school, Erin Manning and Jen Hauser from the junior high, and Stephanie Atkins and myself at the grade school. Our entire staff attended training a little over 2 years ago, and some of you were maybe at that, through SDAC. And after that, as a school, we voted and agreed that we should work towards being a trauma-informed school. And this whole process will be about 3 to 5 years, and maybe even a little bit longer now with some complications of COVID. So the 6 trauma team members, we ended up doing our training online this summer. And actually we have 2 more days of training this week, Thursday and Friday. And then we have, which will be online. And then SDAC has support that's ongoing throughout the whole process to us. The key takeaway from the training this summer was that we have to be emotionally regulated adults before we can lead emotionally regulated students. And I think like we intuitively know that. It's like, to me, we've all had that experience of where you find yourself yelling at your kids to get in the car to go to church on time, and you're screaming and you're mad and you're like, what the heck, we're supposed to be going to church, and everybody's out of control. And it's sort of like, to me, the bumper sticker, if mommy ain't happy, nobody's happy. And so it's sort of like, if the adults aren't regulated, no one's going to be regulated. So that's where we're starting. And we're starting to implement some small ideas at Eisenhower, and we're trying to be very clear with staff that it's important that we're talking about all staff. We're not talking about extra work, extra time, extra documentation of things. Ms. Schramm pointed out at our last meeting, the more the 3 schools can work together and overlap some of our ideas, the better. And so some of our, I just kind of call them like small ideas to just start moving in that direction is, we've talked about it at staff meetings, so most of this, all of this really comes back from staff feedback. So one, for example, a teacher said, you know, I never want to do anything social after school with staff because I feel like I've just been away from my kids all day. And so I don't want to do something away from my kids. But what I would like would be like, you know, once a month, sort of what I used to call like a mommy's coffee, where staff and kids could get together, the staff could visit, the kids could play, run around, that type of thing. Teachers already do a lot of reading, and for those that don't have the time for like a traditional book club, we are working on like a podcast club. So you listen to a podcast, just meet, if you want to, visit, talk about, process that podcast. We still have the idea of the book club with trauma-informed books in mind, and we worked in that direction. Erin Manning had looked into college credit through Friends University for some trauma-informed books, and we probably will do that in the future, but we had enough on our plate right now. Another idea is before school, a morning meditation prayer type group, 10 minutes, just to kind of ground yourself before you go out into the world. We're hoping, I think we're going to try this month, hoping to have lunch delivered. Maybe if people like it, we could do it once a month. Teachers would still pay for their own lunch, but usually a teacher doesn't have time to run downtown to Destination Kitchen, get a lunch, come back and eat it. And so the thought would be, and we're going to start with Destination Kitchen because Shannon thought she could do it once a month when we're having potato boats. That's my thought. That we just say, hey, who wants to just get lunch at Destination Kitchen? We call it in, it gets brought up to us. You just pay for your own, pick it up, and you can just kind of have lunch that way. The other thought is too, it might be a nice way to support local businesses that we could have lunch that way. Last week, some staff at Eisenhower, after school, we just met and walked the trail out at the park. You could bring your kids. It was a small group, but it was really nice. I think we're also planning to do the Cottonwood Trail. Same thing, doesn't cost anything. If you can come, great. If you can't, that's all right. If you bring a child, that's fine. We're going to probably end up doing some yoga or some other kind of physical activity. And I think physical movement is like really important in self-regulating. And right now, teachers' comments are, I'm working so hard only to feel like I'm not doing as good of a job as I was earlier. And teachers have concerns about doing justice to their remote learners, to their kids in the room. And at the end of the day, it's just easy to go home and veg out or overeat or go down some rabbit hole on social media. And it's not that you can never do that, but it's not the same as burning up some of that with physical activity. Physical activity is like hitting a reset button. And it doesn't have to be physical activity. It can be creative activity. It can be talking to people. It can be, playing piano. Staff is really grateful for the generosity of Define Gym. They're offering free memberships until the end of the school year. And that's exactly that. Like, just go do something physical. Even if only a few staff members start to use a few ideas at a time, we feel like we're moving in the right direction. And our goal is to have lots of just little things, opportunities, let people choose what they think is right. No guilt, no pressure. If you can't do it or if you don't want to do it, then that's all right. But we're just working towards recognizing how we can self-regulate and build resistance within staff so that staff then is capable to lead our students. So that's kind of where we're at.
I do want to add that Jeremy Hawks, and I'll be helping him some, but he's going to put up a walking trail back at the junior high and high school for staff members for their breaks or before and after school. And it will have workout stations, wall push-ups and dips and just lunges and stuff. And it'll be marked off so they'll know when a mile is. And Bill Johnson had started that years ago with the wellness committee, and Jeremy's going to finish it up this year. And then we had one at the Eisenhower, and it will be put back up after we remake the posters. When they did the reconstruction, they took all the posters down, and they got lost in the shuffle of all the construction. So we will get one there too for the staff. Those I think will go over very well for their breaks. So, anything else, Bill, you want to add?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Strom now and Mr. Miller have something about the JAG program possibly at the high school.
This is a program that I brought to the attention of Mr. Wilson. It was brought to my attention. Can I log on?
I can let you know. Yep.
Yep. program that was brought to my attention, actually last year from a student who moved down from Nebraska and was begging me to get this program JAG. And it just, JAG stands for Jobs for America's Graduates. Well, I, for a variety of reasons, didn't get around to researching much about it last year. And then this year, serendipitously, some people reached out to me and said, hey, would Norton be interested in starting a JAG program? And I was kind of like, okay, this is coming at me from all different angles. Let's look at this a little bit. And so I met with them first, them being the creators of JAG, and then Scott Sproul and Pratt, I cannot think of her name, Peggy Pratt, who is in charge of our judicial district in Kansas, Craig Knapp, some different people like that, all got together on a Zoom, and we talked about this program. The K just stands for Kansas, so the JAG program in Kansas, because they are in lots of different states. And basically what they do is teach kids who have various risk factors job skills. So how do you interview? How do you listen? How do you present yourself? How do you go to a job and put your phone down? Do what you're asked to do? Call if you can't be there? Those types of things. JAG is actually a curriculum. So they do meet in a classroom in the high school every day. But then there's also the on-site component of the program where the kids are actually going to a job and the teacher goes there as a mentor, so to speak. So that JAG is an actual curriculum that is taught. So as they were presenting it to me, one of the things I liked is that JAG's graduation rate is 95.5%, and that's the at-risk population. That is not the population of the schools that they present. That's their students who have to have some sort of at-risk factor. So they are getting a 95.5% graduation rate from their at-risk students that are in the program. Oh, here's the publisher being there soon. This is theirs. So this is last year's data. So positive outcomes, 86.4%. So they're going on to a job, they're going on to post-secondary education of some sort, or they're going on to some sort of military service. Whoops. They do have a variety of programs. What we are looking at is that multi-year program, that it would come into the high school and just be part of our curriculum. We are looking down the road at, if this is successful, the possibility of talking with Mr. McEwen about extending it downward, but right now we're looking at just what can we do with the high school right now. Yeah, this is all their stuff. You can, yeah, there you go. Okay, so this is their barrier. So when you talk about these kids have to have an at-risk factor somewhere, when you look at that, there's lots of ways we could still get them in, because I'm like, I've got a couple of kiddos who, I don't know if they would meet the at-risk criteria per se, but I think they could benefit from a program like this. And so this is something that they told me. Most of the time we can find an at-risk criteria to get the kids that I feel need to be in there in the program. So those are all the barriers. There's lots of different ways to end up getting a kid to be able to be eligible for this program. It is a curriculum. It's competency-based, so what that means is they are actually looking at, can you go to an interview and maintain eye contact? Can you show up to work consistently? They're looking at those very discrete competencies, and can you meet those competencies? I'm going to go through all of this really fast, because she was doing this as she talked to me, and I don't want to take as much time as when she talked to us. So this is kind of the JAG model. As you look at it. The thing that, one of the reasons why I asked Mr. Miller to be here is it actually is a class in our master schedule. So I was trying to work with Mr. Miller fairly closely in how does this fit into our program? Where do we make this work for us? And he feels like, and don't let me speak for you, but that this could fit nicely into our existing classes, and that we would have space to offer this type of program to some of our at-risk students. So for me, one of the things that also interested me is I'm trying very hard to get our Pathways program up and running. COVID has kind of thrown a wrench in that because they're really careful about kids going out into our community now. But what this particular program does to me is a nice parallel to what I'm trying to do with Pathways and get our kids more of an apprenticeship experience rather than just a work-study experience where they are actually going out there, they're putting together a portfolio, they're putting together even a web page of these are the experiences I've done, these are some of the experiences I've had, this is what I can now do as a result of this. So when I look at the JAG program and I look at Pathways, they are a nice parallel for each other. These are their core competencies. So, whoops, sorry. When you look at what the JAG program curriculum does, those are what they are focused on. Those basic competencies are what they are focused on. But they do help kids set up the resume and get into a job position and then monitor them while they're in that position. So they don't just throw them out there on their own. Okay, the big thing for us is that $11,000 program fee. I've already been in touch with Tara and with Scott and with Donna Little at the chamber. All of them feel like that this is a worthy program and they feel like there are grants out there that would help us offset that cost. Scott and Tara in particular were very supportive and felt like there were funds that could be out there so that in the end this would not be a program that would end up costing the district anything more than a classroom space and then availability to the same things other teachers have, like the copy machine and things like that, that we already would do. They do have some state events where kids from across the state come together, and they are asking us to do that. The 3 to 4 classes on the master's schedule, I believe that's a benefit for us. Would you agree to that?
Yeah.
And just giving us some flexibility in our schedule for some of these kiddos. They do not, when it comes to hiring the teacher or selecting the students, it is not just them, it's a partnership. So as the teacher is hired, which is part of that $11,000, so it's not that we pay the teacher on top of that, that's all part of it. So we're getting this whole class and this teacher for $11,000. We are a part of that process. We have a say in who is hired and we have a say in which students are placed in that program. And they want the teacher to be part of our in-services and our training and our duty rotations. They want whoever we hire to be part of our school, not as somebody separate from or different from what we already do. Okay, so why did they come to me? Because they came to me. But this all started with Governor Kelly is a huge proponent of this plan. She is a big supporter of this plan. One of the things that Governor Kelly is concerned about is there are certain judicial districts in our state that do not have a JAG program. And so kids who are involved with the judicial system in one way or another are definitely somebody the JAG program wants to address. They have been very successful with a lot of those kids that are in that judicial programs one way or another. So when they looked at, we're the 17th district, and those counties up there, when they looked at those counties, Norton was selected as being a good host for a program like this. And so they came to us to be the program, or the school, for the 17th Judicial District to host a program like this and kind of be the starting point for our district. They want to grow it to every county, obviously, but they wanted to start in this district with Norton for a variety of reasons. And really, it's not numbers. It's not the number of kids we have involved in the judicial system. We really don't have a higher proportion than any others. It's just more of the atmosphere and the support that we can give a program like this. So that's kind of my short, and this is something that I'm a big believer in we need to find programs that fit all of our kids rather than trying to make our kids fit the existing programs we have. And I think that this program would be a nice addition to what we currently offer in Norton. And not that we don't already have a great success rate in our schools, but I think this could make us better in that. Mr. Miller, what would you add to what I had to say?
I would just add, as far as getting kids connected, I think this is something too that fits in nice with our KISA, because the JAG representative, we even follow them into their post-grad years, just to check on them, making sure they're successful. And obviously, students that are connected are going to be more successful. And if we can get some of those at-risk factor kids connected with somebody who's obviously advocating for them, I think it's a good thing.
I think, I noticed, I was in on one meeting and it's exactly what Mr. Miller said. For KISA, it checks off several things for us. Post-secondary success, communication with parents, and just a lot of things. And we do have, this is kind of a group of kids that it's hard to have success with at times, and this targets those kids. And they bring someone in, and for $11,000, that's a pretty good deal for us. So I'm kind of excited about it, see what we can do moving forward. But I'm encouraged by the opportunity, I think. So, what do we need today? Do you need any approval from the board, or
I don't need approval yet.
come back later?
Yeah, I just want
Just so you know what we're talking about.
And that, so for you to be aware of what it is and why I am pursuing a program like this. Give you time to ask me questions, Mr. Miller also. If you have questions about how it fits into our curriculum, how it counts as credit towards graduation, and of course graduation rate, post-secondary success, all of that plays in and marks off boxes for our KISA. But even more than that, I think it can reach some of our kiddos that traditionally we haven't been able to reach easily. And my biggest goal as a high school principal is to make sure these kiddos who go out into the real world and be successful. No matter if it's at a job, if it's at college, or if it's in the military, whatever it is that they so choose, I want them to be able to be successful at what they do. And I think this program gives them a huge head start in being able to do that versus what we currently have to offer them. So. Okay.
Questions, anyone?
The funding is from a 501c3, Right.
For their funding,
right?
I just don't know.
No, that's what it said. I just, is there state funds into that?
Yes.
Just if there's a point in time that funding kind of dries up,
Yes.
to consideration of the school that you'd be wanting to keep the program, but you have
Yes.
to take that into.
That was one of the things that, I don't know where that was at. Was it there? I don't know where that
It was
was.
first-
One.
Very first one, I think.
Okay. There it is. One of the things that as I have talked to the people with JAG, that they have said is, yes, that is their basic funding unit, but because they're now trying to get it into the judicial districts, there's funding that they get that will now feed it as well. And then as I'm going to try to get some grants to support it. That would support it as well. What went wrong is Governor Kelly was going to try to get it into the legislature so that it wasn't so year to year as far as the funding went. And then COVID hit and this hit. And so that funding did not go through. But I think before she leaves, she will try to get some funding that is more stable put in place. Will that happen for sure? I don't know. But yes, that's where it comes from. But Peggy Pratt with the judicial, she's in charge of our juvenile judicial district, there's a funding source that's going to come through there. And then I'm hoping I can get something a little more stable through the Hanson Foundation. Now, you're talking grants. Yeah.
And it is year to year, correct?
It
We
is
drop-
year to
We
year
can drop
right
it
now.
any time if that becomes something we'd have to do, then we'd drop it.
It is year to year.
It's not a long-term
Yeah,
multi-year
Which is a
contract.
disservice if you don't keep
Yeah.
it going, I mean, that's.
Yes,
Right.
exactly, yeah.
right, right. I hope that it can gain some support within the legislature if that happens, especially right now in the climate we're in, I don't know. But for right now, $11,000 for another class of this nature, that's pretty cheap.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Sean.
Thank you.
All right. Rank orders.
Ma'am, thank you for letting me come tonight, and annual event. While you pull your books up here, we're going to kind of slide through them here quick. There's a couple up in the box, and help yourself then, go ahead and help yourself all the goodies at the end of the day. Here, with anything left over, take it home with you. Basically, you just kind of follow through a couple front pages here. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can read through the village piece of it. We pretty well updated all them this year. We had a little time on our hands this spring when we went COVID early on, kind of shut things down. And so we was able to get some crews in to restructure a whole lot of buildings this summer, and the spring, summer. So with that being said, there was a lot of grant money that came in, matching grant money we was able to tap into and get a hold of. Hanson did a real good job of pumping in stuff for structure. And so we was able to get some roofs on buildings and air conditioning systems that was needing badly and so on. We tied up with a federal grant outfit out of Denver, Colorado. And basically they came in and they kind of do an overshoot of what we think, what we need, and, you know, kind of lay out a 5-year, 10-year plan of where we need to go and what to be. And so they go out and chase them federal dollars down for us. It costs us about $10,000 to $15,000 a year to have them write grants for us, but they've already paid for themselves. They've nailed it good. Department of Commerce has stepped up to the plate this year. I'm going to jump ahead of myself here a little bit, but the architect and that department drafting, they just pulled in $500,000, $500,000 on equipment. And you're going to come back to your home community here and slap these guys on the back, because the Tone Corporation and New Age is big players and getting signatures and writing this up. And so they did a very good job of getting that in here. And so basically what that did for that $500,000 for them guys was got them at least 3 new printers, a couple fiber optic printers, 1 metal printer. They're going to be able to do some stuff. They got a big milling machine like the Tone Corporation is going to have in their plant. They just added a lot of toys, and they're not going to get in there until this next fall. Matter of fact, we have to revamp the building just to get that big piece in. And so that's a plus. So if you see the guys at New Age and the Tone, we'll slap them on the back for that, because I know they did. I'm the same way on the welding department. And so I wrote my dang signature on more grants coming across in the last 2 years. And so that Quinter piece I reported on last year, I believe, it's up and going good, and all that equipment's in place. But we turned around and reduplicated that money for the campus at Goodman. And so we've got that, and that equipment's in the process of coming in now and being set. Our biggest problem right now is getting the people to train that's supposed to come in, train our people to run the equipment. So with the COVID going on right now, it's kind of been a mess. If you get back to the electrical, there's the NC3, that's the National Coalition of Certification Centers. So NC3 hooked us up with Greenlee, which is pipe benders and machine stuff, and they tied us up with a whole bunch of equipment in that. And that was the very first one out. And then we tied into the diesel mechanics side of it. And we're going to get an addition here this next fall, in the summer probably. We're adding on to the east side of the building. We're actually going to get a dyno in for semis. And so we're going to have a full bay where you can bring your semi and strap it down to the floor and get it plugged in, just like your race car, your motorcycle, and go play with it in an off room, and, you know, and do that. So that's going to be a big piece of equipment when that comes into play. The, of course, the welding I just talked about, Precision Ag. they just keep adding and adding and adding. I don't know what it is. We get split out about any time now because it's turned into a monster. Talking to some kids, and one of the kids is actually graduated from here at Gaston, boy, and they said they took the 6-foot drone up last week and they're dropping pumpkins with it for fun. something to do, you know. But they have a full auto spray rig on the drone now out there, and they have that on campus, and so we're pretty automated on a whole lot of levels out there. Jerry Moran was out there last week and visited with the school, and he brought a whole bunch of his people with him, and the water council of the state of Kansas is very tied into the Northwest Tech out there for water, and so we've got a whole bunch of new equipment to play with there. Technology is kind of exceeds what we're doing. This, and not Navy, Bill and Shrum's already got this letter in the mail. As of next spring, we're offering $500 each student that signs up next spring. For the ones that have a 2-point GPA or above, and that's just how to make $500, no questions asked. They come up and sign up with us next spring. And so we are lagging, you know, like all the schools in the state of Kansas this year. When kids couldn't go to school and they got tired of getting bounced around, some sat out or some didn't even sign up. So we're about 17% off where we were 2 years ago. It kind of dings us and hurts a little bit, but we did the best, probably as any school did. We brought the students in early this summer, especially the athletes, and we brought them in groups of about 10, tested them, and then if they tested all right, then we put them off in a safe zone, and so it was land and whatsoever. We had a couple flare-ups just recently, and believe it or not, they fell in administration. And so one of them we actually had to fly out to Denver, and he got him carried out. He's doing all right. Student-wise, it's been very isolated pockets. I'm going to use this room as an example. 1960s, 70s, air conditioning, tight quarters, and so the business department and some of them are going in for their college credits and stuff like that in classroom. We had a couple there, but honestly, we've been pretty dang good shape. We're still waiting for the big shoe to drop. It could happen, you know. We're not exempt out there. They had some spikes. But then we also shut down their Thanksgiving, so nobody's really leaving campus this fall and going a long ways away from home. So the community stepped up, and they're going to feed them kids for them 3 days on campus. And so we got a pretty good combination of outside help there. And they do a pretty good job when the athletes have things, you know, going on. They'll do the same thing, kind of like your own community does here, you know. They'll have a meal once a week or something for the kids. That gives the kids an opportunity to meet the people in the community and work on some projects that way. I could keep going, but I'm not going to catch you out here. But basically, the 3 programs really took off and did a big growth this year. I don't know what to tell you. Anything else? You got any questions? I mean, we could go on. You've seen the programs. Of course, Jennifer knows we got a shooting program out there now, and I don't know, get her out of animal health.
Now you need a vet tech program.
We get her a different. Pretty important on this back page here. If you got any kids looking at coming out, fill in them blanks, get a hold of everybody, and it's just like any college. Remember, pretty important facts there on that back page. By all means, get online, Facebook, tweet, whatever, and they've got information coming out all the time there. And if you ever follow me whatsoever, you see where I keep bumping it down the line for people, and they get shared, and a pretty good deal there.
You don't have any questions?
All righty, I'll get out of your hair.
Thank you,
Thank
Frank.
you, Frank, we appreciate it.
Yep, have a good one. Like I said, take everything left over in and the box. See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, winter indoor capacities.
We'll turn this over to Mr. McEwen. And I think Ms. Shrum probably a little bit too, will have a little bit put into it, add to it.
Well, seasons are here. We have to move inside. We had a little taste of that with volleyball With volleyball, we did find when we went to a lot of the tournaments, they did restrict the number of people who could come and watch. Most of the tournaments, they got 2 tickets that you could come. So we've been playing around with some numbers, some ideas. Have a little paper for you to take a look at if you'd like to. Some of our thoughts that are going on right now with what we're going to do with limitations. Nothing's in stone. Nothing. Just like anything else in 2020, things could change tomorrow. You have one? For junior high basketball, we talked about this at the last board meeting. Since we host just one school coming in, East Campus and then Stoll Gym, we're gonna have no limitations. Looking ahead to wrestling, when we have our wrestling event, we have 5 different schools that come in, plus us. And so I would like to see us try to host all of our wrestling duels, all of our wrestling events over in Stoll Gym. That's a little more work with getting set up than what it was when you just have to pull it over to East Campus gymnasium, but it's so much bigger over there, more room to spread out. So kind of the thought there is if we're at East Campus for the wrestling for junior high, probably just 2 tickets per participant. That's it. If we go to Stoll Gym, I think we could get 4 tickets per participant. I haven't thought that through a whole lot because that's still a ways away. That's February. It's like after Christmas, so we'll see how things go. For basketball, kind of what a lot of our league schools have been thinking about, and what I'm thinking about as well, is for the JV side of things, kind of like what you have for junior high. There's only X amount of kids that are on the team. East Campus, you just have those 2 teams. We'll have room to spread out. Now, Stoll Gym, we have some games where we have the gym pretty full in Norton. Sometimes on a Tuesday, maybe not, but on a Friday, there's a lot of people who come out for their entertainment to watch kiddos and play basketball. So, thinking there, I don't know for sure. I threw out a random number here of 800 people in there. I think it's advertised as being 2,200 as the seating capacity. I think that was before we pushed in the little sides for the handicap. So kind of thinking off of 2,000, a 40% kind of situation. What we would be able to do then is allow 4 tickets per participant in the basketball, the cheer, and the dance, people that are going to perform that night. Allow 2 tickets per coach, administrator, and sponsor. And then remaining tickets to reach 800 if that's the capacity that we decide to set. First, we'd offer those to the student body so they could come and watch, and then after that, it would be the public at large. And Ms. Strum offered to have people come up on game day and get those through the high school office. The ticket is just basically 10 on a page with a nice little way to be able, we did the work, I started, I'll let Jody finish it, where we can go in and just say, edit, find, replace, change the date, change the school that's coming, and we'll be able to send those to the school. They can print off theirs, we can have ours. And I have a spreadsheet for you to look at as well on how many people that is, how many tickets could possibly be available. Wrestling for the duels, once again, I'd like to see them, I haven't really talked that over with Mr. Johnson, but I'd like to see those moved over into Stoll Gym. If we went with the same seating capacity of 800, I think that would allow for everybody to have 4 tickets, allow 2 tickets, just like we did for basketball, and the remaining until we reach up to 800 for the kids and for the public at large. For the Durham, one of the big issues is that our big gym becomes a much smaller gym because by the time we put out 4 mats, there's not as much seating. So you're going to go from 2,000 down to more than 1,000. You also have 120 some wrestlers, up to 150 wrestlers, depending on which teams are able to come. Keisha's given us they're giving us considerations. You want to try to meet as many considerations as you can, but there's some things that are their considerations that I don't understand. I can't see how we do the sport if we consider all the considerations. So they're gonna say that 8 schools would be the maximum size that they would like to see come in for a tournament. you had 13 weight classes. If they were all full, it'd be 104 people. We were at 124 last year, plus we had like 18 girls. I really, with it being all day, the kids have needing someplace to go. If you've been to the Jaredurham, you know it's people after on top of people during the whole thing. We've already gotten notification from the Cambridge tournament, not allowing spectators. A lot of the things I've done with the ADs, just through some emails, most of them are thinking no spectators for wrestling tournaments as well. So, really for the Jaredurham, I'm hoping to invite all 15 schools. Who knows how many will be able to come. We've already had for junior high basketball, I think there's already been 3 junior high basketball teams that are going to be missing games either last week or this week coming up due to COVID concerns on their teams already. So, I kind of ran into the guy, Rich Ebb from Open Spaces just in town one day. I think he was in town selling ads for things. He said that they would be able to cover all 4 mats if we moved to no spectators. So, if you want to look at my spreadsheet, it didn't print off real well because I'm a color guy on my spreadsheet. But I've got this to where if you say, oh, 800 seems like too many, we'd rather see it at 700. And I can quickly just change the one number on the spreadsheet and change it to a 700 capacity. I've tried to take into consideration, you talk about capacity, your cheerleaders, your dance. MCL did state that they're not having visiting cheerleaders come in to the buildings, so to remove that situation. You know, I try to take into account the teams, the workers, concessions, administrators, the band, sponsor, the cheerleaders, everybody in this total of the capacities. So, and I kind of projected what I think we're going to have out for our teams. The boys are somewhere around 17, maybe 18 players. The girls are about 20. And then I would play each week with whatever the other team sends me for their rosters, as far as how many players are on there, to then be able to come down here and say, well, here's how many tickets we're going to have left over for fans. So you can kind of see, I meant to have them all the same, but on the one on the top where it says capacity of 800, I do have 20 and 20 for their players, for the visitors. And then on the 700, I changed it to 21 and 20 to make sure my spreadsheet was working correctly. I didn't get it changed back. So you can see, if you had a 700 capacity, you'd only have 34 surplus tickets based on those particular numbers. If you had 800, you'd have 139 surplus to be able to hand out to students first and then the public. Some of our thoughts with that. They're not encouraging us to go to basketball tournaments. Right now we're still playing on the top side. There's going to be some change in the formats out there. They said don't expect as good hospitality as we've had in the past. Don't expect the entertainment that we've had in the past. We're going to try to go out there and play a lot of basketball games. They haven't discussed with us if that's a limitation on how many people can go to the games. I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't, especially if you end up playing in the smaller gym here at Max Field House. You can kind of spread out. The other one, it's pretty tight in there. We'll see how winter sports go. Any questions for me on this? Or I don't know. I don't think they probably don't need to make a motion or anything about the capacity, or maybe they do. I don't know.
It'll probably be good. Questions? If you have questions, sure to ask.
Like I say, the considerations, you know, wrestling is one of the most intense ones as far as considerations. Just because of the amount of contact that you have with kids through the weigh-in process while they're waiting around. Wrestling, I mean, basketball you're up close and you're rubbing on people, but wrestling you're even closer. I mean, you're in that personal space the entire time. So, you know, they have considerations with taking a shower after weigh-ins. Make sure you're social distance during weigh-ins. Thinking about changing your uniform after you wrestle. Just a whole lot of considerations.
So roughly, if we had 120 athletes at the Durham last year, I just, in 15 schools, I just roughly figured 2 coaches per school, 30 coaches, 30 managers. You're right around 200. So then, if we set it at 800, then you have about 600.
For the Durham, we are not. For the Durham, the thing is you don't have full bleachers.
Right, right.
On the Durham, you have 1,000. So if you're going to go 40% of the 1,000, you got 400 people that are in there, and all of a sudden that's the wrestlers and the workers.
Right.
Because how are you going to distinguish between?
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not going to be. And also for the Durham, the added number of kids when we had for the JV, although it wasn't a huge number, to me it's just too much to open up our building and have people all the way through. If you have the Durham install gym, I think you can install gym. It's going to hurt. I mean, you're not going to have the proceeds from people coming in. FFA is not going to be able to necessarily set up their big food truck like they had in the past in the cafeteria and run people through there. But I have a hard time seeing it come back, and it's right after Christmas. So it's also another concern of mine is it's right after Christmas.
I think the only way we can have the Durham is not have a crowd. And you'll still be a little anxious, but that's just because, mostly anxious because we're coming back after Christmas, but I think by the time we have all in one place and only one side bleachers with the athletes and coaches and managers, that's about all the room we'd have to spread out. But at least the kids would get to wrestle. That's the most important thing. Questions or ideas or whatever?
There's some thoughts about different ways to do the wrestling tournament as far as, trying to split weight classes from one gym to another gym, between East Campus and there, so you could have more bleachers out on one side. I think Colby has mentioned on their tournament, they're going to, rather than have a tournament, they're going to go 6 schools in one and 6 schools in the other. So basically they'll probably end up having round robins the entire time. My concern with that, once again, is that hurting our it hurts. I think it hurts the chances of our wrestlers being able to wrestle as many matches as they could at the JR Durham, because which 6 schools, which weight class are you taking over there, which ones are you not, and the way they're doing it, I think that'd be really hard for ours, because we have some bigger schools that have filled most of the weight classes, and we have some that just bring 5 or 6. I think the average was 7 off of the teams we had last year.
And as Dustin and I were talking about this, Keisha has been reluctant to kind of give us a hard line. They kind of want the local schools to make up your own decision, and then I'm assuming that around regionals and state time they'll come down with their rules. But it's one of those, either have a big tournament with 15 schools with no fans, or you have a tournament with 6 schools and allow a few fans. So when we talked, you kind of want sport is for the kid, and if we can stream it, then you have pretty much the best of both worlds.
And we're still, we've been, Nebraska's come out and said not to, and Kansas has also, Keisha has also come out with, try not to have out-of-state competitions, stay more regional. Well, for us, the teams that we bring in from Nebraska are, in my opinion, regional. Some of them are closer than my league schools to us as far as travel is concerned, and I don't feel like the virus knows when it's crossing state lines necessarily. So I'm not as concerned about that. Once again, it's a consideration after consideration. In order to have a tournament that's going to be of quality, I think we almost have to break the consideration of not having more than 8 schools. Because our 15 is not much different than having 8, other than it's more communities coming in. We have been told that we can't come to a couple tournaments in Nebraska already. Holdridge is not letting us come up. I think we're out of state, so we're the first ones to get the axes. They're trying to whittle their tournament down to less number of schools. And the other one was it Southern Valley or was it Elm Creek? can't remember
I
which
don't
one it is
know.
right now.
I was Southern Valley.
Southern Valley, which we usually just,
Right.
we took our JV up there to Southern Valley, so.
And we say all this in next week, things could change drastically. I mean, I just heard that Topeka schools have pushed back their winter sports a little bit, just before I came here. The start dates, so who knows? That's the frustrating thing for us coaches is, and athletic directors and everyone in the school system is like, we don't know what's gonna happen.
And I wasn't in school today. I stayed home and went to KIAAA conference, fall conference in my house, on Zoom watching. And, you know, for all of the postseason things other than football really, you know, volleyball, they didn't bring all 8 schools to one location. The first round was played at the home sites of the even numbered districts or whatever it was. It's only 4 of them got to make that trip. When you talk about cross country, they made more regionals. They took less teams to state. Tennis, they had less teams qualify for state. So they made changes along the way, and they're going to make some kind of change for both basketball. I mean, whether it's for basketball, whether it's that first round that they play at home sites, wrestling, whether it's they do a regional and then do another sub-state kind of turn. There's going to be something different. They don't know what it is yet either. They're still working with their medical teams to determine what they're going to do. Return to play protocols, right? They came out with some of those for football. If you were gone for so many days, or if you were positive, you have to go through this many days before you can return to play. Kind of like the concussion protocol. They don't even have those out yet, and we're in basketball for junior high right now, and so we're kind of working off of the model of, well, for football and volleyball, they chose this. For cheerleading, they chose this for how many days. So we're kind of just working off that. What we anticipate, and with being as much running as you have in basketball, we anticipate that it's going to be similar to football and to volleyball. Another completely not on that, but on the same kind of thing. MCL Music Festival that we've hosted year after year after year after year since whenever. I have kind of put it out there to the MCL schools that I do not see that as a possibility for this year coming up. 12 schools. Even if they only bring 30 kids to school, all in our buildings, if you've ever tried to walk through, it's kid after kid after kid on top of kids. So I think that's going to have to take a break for this year. Definitely. So, do you feel comfortable with 800 in our Stoll gym?
Yes.
Yep. You need that in a motion?
And I really don't think that any one time you'll actually have all 800 of them.
Do we need just a motion to approve your plan as presented? I was thinking of an easy way to
Works
make
for
a
me.
motion. If that's what you agreed to, if you want something
Now-
changed.
But I also would like to have the flexibility that
Which could change.
it could change. But I mean, yes, as an initial plan, I think I counted at the junior high. I wasn't at Stoll Gym to see how many people were over there. But when I was at East Campus for the girls' games, I think I counted 108 spectators were at our game, and they still had more room that they could have spread out into some areas that they didn't choose necessarily to spread out. And obviously, masks are still required at all times.
What do we have, like one basketball game before the next board meeting?
December 18th is our first
Home.
home. I think
So
December
it's after
18th
board
is what I
meeting.
made on those tickets.
So there'll be another board meeting if we need to change it, I guess.
Well, we could,
My thing is, I need to
Whatever
start
you
getting the
guys
word
wanna
out
do.
to. I need to start getting the word out to the J.R.
Yeah.
Durham people. What our plans are, and if I'm going to cancel. Not that you guys are going to tell me not to do that, but you know, I'm going to cancel the JV, the J.R. Durham. That there's not going to be spectators. Things like that.
so I'll make a motion to approve the attendance limitations for USD 211 winter activities as presented, with any changes or modifications to be approved by the superintendent.
I'll like it.
Thanks.
I second that.
You want me to do that again?
Put input of AD on there too.
But,
No, it's not.
Right,
I'm just giving you a thumb.
He's the boss.
that's right.
You need a thumbs up or thumbs down anyway, I'm used to it.
like Jennifer Miller.
Call.
Yeah.
Call
Leave
two board
Jennifer's
members.
phone.
Yeah, there you go.
No. Jennifer will be resigning.
Thanks,
Any
Bill.
modification can be approved by the superintendent. Any modifications that can be approved by the superintendent, just so it doesn't have to come back to the board.
Abby, ready.
Our lobby's closed, they can't get in. It's open now.
Do we need to separate you two?
Yeah, probably.
Sean, get all that? Oh,
You get all that, Sean?
Is he on?
Is he still on speakerphone?
I got it full out. I hear him a little bit, but barely.
It doesn't look like he's on speaker.
Oh,
There's the
maybe.
little speaker button. There.
Why not, since you called back, I may have lost
Use
it.
your ear.
There
There
it
you
is.
go. What do you think, Sean?
I just heard bits and pieces. I couldn't hear it very well.
Repeat all that, Dustin.
So I'm gonna just not say anything about it.
You have to approve the. You have to approve the.
He doesn't go.
So we're kind of looking like a maximum capacity at the Stoll Gym of 800
For basketball.
for basketball
Basketball and duels.
and wrestling duels.
Okay.
And then the JR Durham, don't know quite yet, but maybe no spectators.
With the mouths being covered. Live coverage.
Yeah.
And all your participants get 4 tickets. So, per kid for their parents and such.
Okay.
So that's where it starts.
So that's the proposal right now. Did you hear the motion?
No.
Motion was made to approve this attendance limitations for the USD 211 winter activities with any changes being made, and the superintendent would approve them if there was any changes.
Okay.
Did I get that right? Yeah, okay.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I need a second.
Aye.
You second?
Jamie seconded it along with.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried 6-0. Thank you for all your work, Mr. McEwen.
Yeah.
Thank
That was
you.
great, thank you.
Good luck.
It has to be. That's it.
Wrestling parents are the easiest to control anyway. They're not there.
All right, next item on the agenda, calendar change for Professional Development Day, November 18th.
Okay, on Wednesday, November 18th, we had scheduled an MTSS early release at 1 o'clock for that day. How those have been set up in the past, every month or every other month or so, we've had MTSS release to work on the MTSS items with staff, and we let the kids out after lunch. What I'm proposing with a lot of things we have going on this year and teachers needing to work on things and always be prepared for remote and just kind of catch up, is to make that a professional development day for the full day on the 18th. So they'll work on some things in groups, in their buildings, most likely. There may be some other things they get together in other small groups and still have some MTSS time as well throughout the day. So it's just kind of a catch-up day. with everything we got going on. Catch your breath day a little bit too, but we kind of find out where we're at as we get ready for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the things that are going to follow that, and that we're prepared for that. So I would recommend we make that a full day of in-service. It will count as still as a half day for our 11, 16 hours, our total hours. It'll still count for half by being a professional development day. So we have snow days, so hopefully we don't use 10 snow days. So that's my recommendation.
Any discussion?
That November 18th falls on what day?
I think it's a Wednesday, I believe, middle of the week. Yeah.
Is that the day before the kids get out of school?
No.
Or is it just?
No, it's a week before. It's the week before. Yep.
Gotcha.
Thanksgiving's the last weekend. Week.
How many professional development days do we already have?
We had 3 at the very beginning of the year. We usually have 1 in January. And I don't know that we have another one scheduled this year later. Then we have the 1 o'clock early releases. We have several of those.
Okay.
But with everything going on with COVID, that's why we thought maybe this wouldn't be a bad idea. And maybe look at one in February too. So it depends on how things go.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move that November 18th is a professional development day for the entire day and students don't have classes.
Is there a second? I'll second. Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 6-0. Alrighty. Executive, oh no, we're gonna have
Board
reports.
I will start. We had a Nck Fcc Board Meeting on Monday, October 19th at 7:30. There was a community presentation from Adams, Brown, Barron, and Ball. There are certified public accountants via Zoom meeting. They presented the fiscal year financial audit for the board. The board voted to accept the report. Recent events include new para orientation, project stay visit, administrators conducting evaluations. Region 8 was held in Russell. 6 PLC meetings to be held via Zoom. Deb and Wes met with Sacred Heart in Plainville. The special education state categorical aid personnel report was submitted October 2nd. The interlocal agreement was submitted October 6th. We had a discussion about who might be representatives on the negotiations team. Todd Kennedy and Shane DeBoer volunteered to serve for the 2020-2021 school year. We did receive Deb's retirement letter. It will be effective June 30th, 2021, after 7 years as the Director of Special Education for the board, or for any Nck Fcc. And our next meeting will be Monday, November 16th at 7:30.
Is she full-time second semester or part-time second semester?
She's part-time.
Okay, so I thought. Just wonder if that was out there.
That shouldn't have changed. She's supposed to be part-time.
That was my understanding.
All right, the Curriculum Coordinating Council met on the 13th at 7:30 in the morning. With Applied Tech, they're working with Zoom. It syncs up better with the applications like GoEduStar and GoBeMax. Language Arts had nothing, Science had nothing. Social Studies reported there is no state geography B. For Fine Arts, they've been working on social distancing. Mr. Mordecai is in the band, and Tamra Cochran was having the high school sing with masks on for their concert that was coming up, but they would not sing with them at the concert. They've been practicing on social distancing. Jennifer Reuter has bags for her students. Math presented last month. The wellness, the district wellness, they've had issues with their remote students, but they've been rolling with the punches. They're going to talk about a walking track at both schools. Staff wellness is their big push this year. Pam Shelton was at our meeting tonight. They talked about full-time staff getting a free membership to Divine till the end of the year. Assessment had, they had the makeup date for the ACT, had 8 students. Pre-ACT was October 29th. State assessments are in January. And then on Wednesday, the 14th, they had the National Merit and PSAT test for 10 juniors on that Wednesday. The KISA, they have 4 items. They're working on data collection. Keep going with the 5-year plan. They're in year 4 now. They're going to continue going. They're not going to step back. They're going to continue with the 5-year plan. The OVT results, they're in year 3. They were impressed with all that we have done with our KISA plan. The next meeting is tomorrow morning at 7:30.
PEC did not have a meeting, they will have a meeting November 23rd.
Okay. Next item, superintendent evaluation.
I placed these at your seat, I believe. These are those of you that have been here for a while, these are the very standard superintendent evaluation forms. There's not a perfect evaluation tool out there, I don't think. That's also easy. People like easy evaluations, but easy ones usually are not always the greatest, but it is what it is. USD 211 does evaluate administration yearly. Not everyone does that, but that's what's in our policy, so that's what you guys do and what I do with principals. So that's usually done in December for me, and then we talk, and then January we talk about principals. So I don't know, Dina, how you want them to do this, if they want to get them back to you, or just get together when we come in
We usually
December?
just, yeah.
That's usually what it ends up being anyway.
Yeah, we usually do it all in December.
So look
But
through
read
them.
over them,
Yep.
kind of mark what you think, any comments, and then we'll talk about it, combine them all, and then present them to Mr. Wilson. Okay, so that's your homework.
Assignment for this one.
All right, executive session.
I'd like one with about 5 minutes with Ms. Schramm. And then we have another one.
I move we go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel and personnel assignments as protected by the KOMA, and to return to the open meeting at 8:55 to include the superintendent, the school board, and Ms. Schramm.
Thank you, Jane.
Do we have a second? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you again.
I will turn off your camera, but you'll have to turn it back on.
Yeah.
I'll try to remember.
Thank you, Mr. Roy.
Thank you.
Thanks for running.
Call the meeting back to order. Agenda item number 14, personnel action.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate, transfer Kyle Wright to Transportation Director and part-time maintenance duties.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Bill Johnson to be the USD 211 representative on the Norton Recreation Board.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Jennifer seconds that. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Turn my paper over. Is that it?
Then we'll advertise for maintenance. We'll put that, start with that.
Okay.
Let's see if we need to advertise for cook. No, part-time cook.
Anything else? Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Me either. Ray washed my mask today. It smells good. Oh, camera.